You abandoned them for 15 years and now you want half of everything? Over my dead body. Those words came out of my mouth before I even realized I was standing in my mother-in-law's kitchen, shaking, holding a stack of hospital bills with my own name on every single one of them. My name is Sarah. I'm 34 years old, and for the last decade, I've been the one showing up. Not my husband's older sister, me. I drove my father-in-law to chemo appointments. I sat in emergency rooms at 3 a.m., holding my mother-in-law's hand while she cried from the pain. I learned how to give insulin shots because nobody else in this family bothered to. And now, 3 weeks after my father-in-law's funeral, my sister-in-law walks back into our lives like she never left. Dressed in designer black, tears perfectly timed, telling everyone how devastated she is. Devastated. She hadn't called her own father in 15 years. But grief has a way of making people forget the truth, or maybe she's just counting on the rest of the family forgetting it too. Because 2 days after the funeral, she showed up with a lawyer. She wants 50% of everything. The house, the savings, all of it. If you were in my position, the one who actually did the work, while someone else disappeared, would you fight back? Or would you just let her walk away with half of a life she had no part in? Because I wasn't about to let that happen, not without a fight. The day my father-in-law passed, something in me went numb. 10 years of caregiving. And suddenly, it was over. No more medication schedules. No more late-night calls from the nursing home. No more of his tired voice saying, "Thank you, Sarah," like it was the only thing keeping him going. I thought the hardest part was behind me. I had no idea the real fight hadn't even started. The funeral was quiet, the way my mother-in-law wanted it. Just family, a few old friends, and flowers she'd chosen months in advance because she always said she didn't want to leave a mess behind. My husband Daniel barely spoke the entire service. He'd lost his father, and I could see him disappearing into himself. The way people do when grief is too big to hold. That's when she walked in. Melissa, Daniel's older sister. I hadn't seen her in almost 8 years, the last time being a cousin's wedding where she left after 20 minutes because, in her words, family gatherings give her anxiety. She hadn't called on birthdays. She hadn't sent so much as a text when her father was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. When I messaged her begging, honestly, just asking her to call her dying father once she left me on red for 4 days before responding with, "I can't deal with this right now." And yet there she was, at the funeral, sobbing into a tissue like she'd been by his bedside every single night. I told myself, let her grieve however she needs to. Grief is complicated. I wasn't going to be the one to make a scene at her father's funeral. But 2 days later, she called Daniel. Not to talk about their mother. Not to ask how she was holding up alone in that big empty house. She called about the will. "Dad's estate needs to be split evenly," she said, loud enough that I could hear her through the phone from across the room. "I'm his daughter too. I have rights." Daniel just sat there, quiet, the way he always gets when his sister steamrolls a conversation. I watched him nod along to things I knew he didn't actually agree with. Because that's the pattern in this family. Nobody ever says no to Melissa. Not even when she's wrong. Especially not when she's wrong. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the years I'd spent driving 40 minutes each way to bring my mother-in-law to dialysis. The birthdays I'd remembered when Melissa forgot. The nights I sat in that hospital room translating medical jargon into something my father-in-law could actually understand, holding his hand when he was scared. When his own daughter couldn't be bothered to answer a phone call. And now she wanted half. Not because she earned it, not because she showed up, but because a piece of paper said she was his daughter. And apparently blood was supposed to erase 15 years of absence. I decided right then if she was going to fight dirty, I needed to be ready. I spent the next few days pulling together everything. Every photo of me at the hospital, every receipt from medications I'd picked up. Every text message where I'd begged Melissa to visit, to call, to just show up, and every single time she ignored me. I found old emails between her and her mother, going back years, where my mother-in-law had practically pleaded with her to come home for Christmas, only to be met with excuses about work and not having the energy. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just needed the truth to exist somewhere other than my memory. Then Melissa upped the stakes. She hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a sharp, aggressive one who sent us a formal letter claiming Melissa was unduly excluded from decision-making regarding her father's care and estate, and that she intended to pursue her rightful inheritance in full. The letter painted a picture of a grieving daughter who'd been kept away from her family by a controlling, manipulative daughter-in-law. Me. They were talking about me. I remember reading that letter with my hands shaking, feeling something twist violently in my chest. 15 years of being the one who never left, and now I was being rewritten as the villain in my own story. Daniel finally snapped out of his fog when he read it. "This is insane," he said. "She's trying to make it sound like you kept her away." "She's trying to make it sound like a lot of things," I said. "But she forgot one detail." "What's that?" "Everything's documented. Every visit I made. Every visit she didn't." That's when the real twist came. While digging through my mother-in-law's paperwork to organize the estate, I found something that changed everything. A folder, tucked behind old tax documents, containing bank statements from an account I didn't even know existed, one in Melissa's name, jointly held with my father-in-law. Not just any account. One with irregular withdrawals going back almost 3 years, all timed suspiciously close to visits Melissa claimed she never made. She had been visiting, secretly, not to see her father, to access his accounts. My stomach dropped as I pieced it together. Withdrawals of $2,000, $5,000, once even $8,000, all around the same days my father-in-law had mentioned, confused, that he'd seen Melissa comments we'd all dismissed as confusion from his medication. He wasn't confused. She'd been coming in when no one else was around, taking money, and disappearing again before anyone could confirm it. I brought this to Daniel immediately. He went pale. "She's been stealing from Dad," he said quietly, "for years. And now she wants half of what's left," I said, after already taking what she wanted in private. We didn't confront her right away. I wanted everything airtight, bank records, timestamps, even a conversation with a home health aide who confirmed seeing a woman matching Melissa's description visiting on days she swore she was out of state. The lawyer's letter had given us a court date for mediation. Melissa walked in with her attorney, composed, confident, ready to paint herself as the wronged daughter fighting for her rightful inheritance. She had no idea what I was about to lay on that table. The mediation room was cold, sterile, the kind of place designed to strip emotion out of the room. Melissa sat across from us, arms crossed, her lawyer already talking about equitable distribution, and estranged, but still entitled. I let them talk. I let her believe she still had the upper hand. Then I placed the folder on the table. Bank statements, timestamps, the aide's written statement, photos from my phone, dated and geotagged, showing me at every single hospital visit for a decade while her side of the timeline stayed empty, except for a pattern of unexplained withdrawals that lined up perfectly with the days her own father swore he'd seen her. Her lawyer went quiet first. Melissa's face changed the moment she saw the numbers. "You've been taking money from Dad for years," Daniel said, his voice steady for the first time in weeks, "while pretending you didn't exist in this family, and now you want half of what's left?" She didn't have an answer, not a real one, just excuses that fell apart the second anyone asked a follow-up question. The mediator recommended a full audit of the estate accounts before any settlement could proceed. Melissa's lawyer asked for a recess. They never came back with a counteroffer. 2 weeks later, we received formal notice. Melissa was withdrawing her claim entirely, in exchange for us not pursuing the missing funds legally. She got nothing, not because we were cruel, because the truth finally caught up to her. I won't pretend this made me feel triumphant. Mostly, I just felt tired. Tired of being underestimated. tired of being painted as the villain for simply showing up when it mattered. But I also felt something else: relief. That the people who actually did the work, who actually loved my father-in-law when it was hard and unglamorous, were finally seen. If you'd been in my position, quietly documenting everything for years, never expecting to need it, would you have done the same thing? Or would you have just let her walk away with half of what she never earned? So tell me, am I in the wrong for fighting to protect what my family actually built, together, through real sacrifice? If this story hit home for you, drop a comment below. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. And share it with someone who needs to hear. The truth always comes out eventually.